The night that changed everything, Jenna Hayes checked her phone for the third time in 5 minutes. Squinting at the glowing screen through the rain that hammered against her scooter's windshield, the address glowed back at her, 2847 Park Avenue. Apartment 4-B. She was already 20 minutes late, and her boss Greg had made it. It's crystal clear that one more complaint would mean looking for a new job. The November rain had turned Manhattan into a gray watercolor painting, all blurred edges and running colors. Her red delivery jacket was soaked through, her jeans clung uncomfortably to her legs. And somewhere between 5th Avenue and here, she had lost feeling in her toes. The pizza box balanced precariously on her lap, its warmth the only comfort in the cold night. At 24, Jenna had imagined her life would look different by now. She had graduated with honors in art history, written a thesis on forgotten female painters of the Harlem Renaissance that her professor called brilliant, and had dreams of curating exhibitions at major museums. Instead, she delivered pizzas 4 nights a week to pay for graduate school, lived in an apartment the size of a closet with her best friend Riley, and survived on instant noodles and ambition. The impressive building, the building that loomed before her, was nothing like the usual deliveries. This was old money, the kind of place where doormen wore actual uniforms, and the lobby probably had marble imported from Italy. Jenna felt immediately out of place as she pushed through the revolving door, dripping water onto floors that gleamed like mirrors. The doorman looked up from his desk, his expression shifting from polite interest to barely concealed disdain as he took in her soggy appearance. His name tag read George in elegant script. "Delivery for 4-B," Jenna announced, trying to sound more confident than she felt. George's eyebrows rose slightly. "Mr. Blake didn't mention expecting a delivery. Someone ordered a large pepperoni with extra cheese and mushrooms," Jenna replied, consulting her phone again. "This is 2847 Park Avenue, right?" "Indeed it is." George picked up his phone, pressed a button, and waited. After a moment, he hung up. No answer. "You're welcome to go up, but I should warn you that Mr. Blake values his privacy." Jenna nodded, too tired and wet to care about the warning in his tone. She just wanted to deliver this pizza, collect her tip, and get home to a hot shower in her thesis chapter that was due in 3 days. The wrong apartment. The elevator was the kind that had a mirror on every wall, forcing Jenna to confront her bedraggled reflection from multiple angles. Her dark hair had escaped its ponytail and hung in wet strands around her face. Her mascara had smudged slightly, giving her an accidental smoky eye effect. She looked like a drowned cat, and not even a cute one. The 42nd floor hallway was silent, except for the soft hum of expensive air conditioning. Thick carpet muffled her footsteps as she searched for apartment B. The doors here were spaced far apart, suggesting apartments that were less apartments and more small estates. She found 42 bites and knocked 3 times. Nothing. She knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. Jenna checked her phone one more time, confirming the address and apartment number. This was definitely the right place, even if nobody seemed to be home. She was about to turn away when she noticed something. The door was slightly ajar, just a crack, as if someone had closed it without hearing the latch click. Warm light spilled through the gap, and she could hear music playing softly inside, something classical that she didn't recognize. "Hello?" she called out, pushing the door open just a little wider. "Pizza delivery." No response. Against every instinct screaming at her to just leave the pizza and run, Jenna pushed the door open and stepped inside. The encounter of the apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city that took her breath away. Millions of lights glittering in the rain like fallen stars. The furniture was modern but comfortable. It's a kind of carefully curated space that looked effortless but probably cost more than she made in a year. Original artwork hung on exposed brick walls, and she recognized at least 2 pieces from artists she had studied. She was so busy staring at a painting that might have been a genuine Rothko that she didn't hear the footsteps until it was too late. "Can I help you?" Jenna spun around so fast that the pizza box tilted dangerously in her hands. Standing in the doorway to what must have been the bedroom was a man, clearly fresh from the shower. Water still glistened on his broad shoulders and chest. His dark hair was damp and messy, and a towel hung low on his hips in a way that should have been illegal. He looked like he had been carved from marble by someone who really understood human anatomy, but it was his eyes that made Jenna forget how to breathe. They were deep green, the color of forests after rain, and they looked at her with a mixture of surprise and something else she couldn't quite identify. Her brain short-circuited. The pizza box slipped from her nerveless fingers. Time seemed to slow down as the box tumbled through the air, flipping once, twice, before landing face down on what was definitely a Persian rug that probably cost more than her car. The lid popped open on impact, and cheese sauce and toppings spread across the intricate pattern like some kind of culinary crime scene. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. Jenna dropped to her knees, trying desperately to scoop the pizza back into the box, but it was useless. The damage was done. I am so sorry. I didn't mean to. The door was open, and I thought, stop. His voice was calm, surprisingly gentle given the circumstances. He walked closer, and Jenna was acutely aware that he was still mostly naked, and she was kneeling at his feet covered in pizza sauce. This was definitely going in her top 10 most embarrassing moments, possibly top 5. I'll pay for the rug, she babbled, still trying to salvage the unsalvageable pizza. I'll work it off. I can clean houses or walk dogs or whatever you need. A hand appeared in her line of vision, extended toward her. She looked up to find him smiling, actually smiling, like this was amusing rather than infuriating. An unexpected invitation. I'm Cameron, he said, and you're in the wrong apartment. For to be is my neighbor, Mrs. Delacroix. She orders pizza every Thursday like clockwork. This is for 2A. Jenna stared at him, then at the ruined rug, then back at him. You're kidding. I never kid about pizza disasters. He was definitely amused now, a dimple appearing in his left cheek. Come on, get up. The rug has survived worse. She took his hand, and he pulled her to her feet with effortless strength. Standing, she barely reached his shoulder, and she had to tilt her head back to look at him. Up close, she could see that his eyes had flecks of gold in them, and he smelled like expensive soap and something else. Yes. Something clean and masculine that made her head spin. Should go, she managed. Deliver this to the right person. What's left of it anyway? Or, Cameron said slowly, still holding her hand, you could stay for a drink. Let me order a new pizza for Mrs. Delacroix. You can tell me how you ended up breaking into my apartment and assaulting my floor. I didn't break in. The door was open. Even better. Terrible security habits and pizza-related property damage. This is already the most interesting Thursday I've had in months. Jenna knew she should leave. She had other deliveries waiting. Greg would be furious about the delay. And staying for drinks with a half-dressed stranger whose rug she had just destroyed was objectively a terrible idea. One drink, she heard herself say. But only because I feel guilty about your rug, and because I'm devastatingly charming. He raised an eyebrow. And because you haven't called the police, which I appreciate. Cameron laughed, a warm sound that filled the enormous apartment. Fair enough. I'm going to put on some clothes, and then we can discuss your life of crime over wine. Red or white? Whatever's open, Jenna replied, still trying to process what was happening. He disappeared into the bedroom, and Jenna stood alone in the middle of his living room, surrounded by art that belonged in museums and furniture that belonged in magazines. With pizza sauce on her hands and rain in her hair, this was absolutely crazy. She should grab what was left of the pizza and run. Instead, she pulled out her phone and texted Riley, You will not believe what just happened. If I'm not home by midnight, I'm probably being held captive by a gorgeous billionaire. Send help. Or don't, I'll decide later. Riley's response was immediate. Details immediately. But before Jenna could respond, Cameron returned wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater that somehow made him look even better than he had half naked. He carried 2 wine glasses and a bottle that probably cost more than her monthly rent. So, he said, pouring wine the color of rubies, tell me, Jenna. He glanced at her name tag. Do you make a habit of breaking into penthouses and destroying priceless rugs? or am I special? Despite everything, despite the absurdity of the situation and the voice in her head screaming about how this couldn't possibly end well, Jenna found herself smiling. You're definitely special. I usually at least get the apartment number right. And just like that, sitting on a sofa that probably cost more than her education, drinking wine she couldn't pronounce, covered in pizza sauce and still dripping on his hardwood floors, Jenna Hayes began the most unexpected night of her life. Outside, the rain continued to fall on Manhattan, washing the streets clean, and neither of them noticed when one drink became two and two became three, and the hours slipped away like water through their fingers. The first real date 3 days had passed since the pizza disaster, and Jenna still couldn't quite believe it had actually happened. She had Cameron's number saved in her phone, a string of text messages that proved it wasn't just a dream, and a memory of his smile that kept interrupting her thoughts at the most inconvenient times. They had stayed up until 3 in the morning that first night, talking about everything and nothing. He had ordered a fresh pizza for Mrs. Delacroix and tipped the delivery driver so generously that Jenna felt secondhand embarrassment. Then they had eaten cold leftover Chinese food from his refrigerator while he told her about his company, a tech startup that had somehow become a billion-dollar empire, and she told him about her research into forgotten artists who deserved to be remembered. When she finally left, he had insisted on calling her a car, and as she rode home through the empty streets, she kept thinking about the way he had looked at her, like she was something rare and worth paying attention to now. Standing in front of her closet in the apartment she shared with Riley, Jenna was having a minor crisis about what to wear. The blue dress, Riley called from the doorway, where she was watching with obvious amusement. It makes your eyes pop. And it says I'm confident but not trying too hard. I don't own a blue dress, Jenna replied, pushing hangers aside with increasing frustration. You do now? Riley held up a shopping bag. I borrowed it from my cousin. Consider it an investment in your future happiness. You're assuming there's going to be a future. This is just dinner, the billionaire who spent 4 hours talking to you about Renaissance painters and couldn't stop texting you for 3 days straight. Yeah, just dinner. Riley had a point. Cameron had texted her good morning every day, sent her pictures of artwork he thought she would appreciate, and asked questions about her research that showed he was actually listening. It was thoughtful in a way that made her chest feel tight. The blue dress fit perfectly, skimming her curves without being too obvious about it. Riley did her makeup, keeping it natural but polished, and helped her tame her dark hair into soft waves. When Jenna looked in the mirror, she almost didn't recognize herself. You look amazing, Riley said softly. Just remember, he already likes you. He liked you covered in pizza sauce and rain. This is just bonus. The diner Cameron had told her to pick the place anywhere she wanted. Jenna had expected him to push back when she suggested Rosie's Diner in Brooklyn, a place where the coffee came in chipped mugs and the menu hadn't changed since 1987. But he had simply texted back, perfect. I'll meet you there at 7. She arrived 10 minutes early, nervous energy making it impossible to be late. The diner was busy with the usual Thursday night crowd, families and couples and solitary people reading books over plates of meatloaf. She slid into a booth by the window and tried to calm her racing heart. When Cameron walked in, every head in the diner turned. He was wearing jeans and a leather jacket, casual and relaxed. But there was something about the way he carried himself that drew attention. He spotted her immediately and smiled, that same smile that had made her forget how to think 3 days ago. This place is great, he said, sliding into the booth across from her. How did you find it? I used to come here with my dad when I was little, Jenna replied. Before he passed away, the owner, Rosie, still remembers my usual order. Something shifted and Cameron's expression became softer. What was your usual? Chocolate chip pancakes with extra whipped cream? I was 7 and had my priorities straight. The most important meal choices we make are the ones involving excessive whipped cream, Cameron agreed solemnly. And she laughed. Feeling the nervous tension dissolve, they ordered. Jenna getting a burger and fries, Cameron choosing the same after studying the menu like it was a important document. When the food arrived, greasy and perfect, and nothing like the fancy restaurants he probably usually ate at, he took a bite and closed his eyes in appreciation. This is incredible. I can't remember the last time I had a burger that actually tasted like a burger. What do your burgers usually taste like? Pretension and disappointment, he grinned. Lots of microgreens, not enough satisfaction. Opening Upus, they ate. The conversation flowed easily, moving from light topics to deeper ones, with a naturalness that surprised them both. Cameron told her about growing up with parents who had expectations he could never quite meet, about his father Thomas, who had been a concert pianist before building his tech empire. He wanted me to love music the way he did, Cameron said, staring down at his half-eaten burger. And I did for a while. But then he got sick, and suddenly I was 23 and running a company I barely understood because he couldn't anymore. The music just sort of disappeared. Too many meetings, too many decisions. No time for things that didn't make money. Jenna reached across the table and touched his hand. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard, is it? He looked up at her. I thought it was just life. Putting away childish things and being responsible. Playing music isn't childish. Neither is making art or writing poetry or any of the things that make us human. Those are the things that matter. The money in meetings, that's just survival. The rest is actually living. Cameron turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just scared. The words came out before she could stop them. Scared that I'll spend my whole life studying other people's passions and never live my own. That I'll wake up at 50 and realize I played it so safe that I forgot what it feels like to want something badly enough to risk everything for it. The truth about dreams. What do you want? Cameron asked quietly. If you could have anything, do anything, what would it be? Jenna had never said it out loud before, not even to Riley. But sitting in this diner with this man who somehow made her feel brave, the words spilled out. I want to go to Italy. To Florence, Rome, Venice. I want to see the paintings I've studied for years in person, not just in books. I want to touch the walls where these women worked, walk the streets they walked. And then I want to come back and curate an exhibition about them. It's not in some small gallery where nobody goes, but somewhere major. The Met, maybe, or the Museum of Modern Art. I want people to know their names, to see their work, and understand what they overcame to create it. She paused, embarrassed by her own intensity. That probably sounds ridiculous. It sounds like the least ridiculous thing I've heard in years, Cameron said firmly. Why aren't you doing it? Because dreams like that cost money I don't have. Because going to Italy means not working. And not working means not eating. Because exhibitions at major museums don't just happen because you want them to. Because it's safer to keep my head down. Finish my degree and hope for a tenure. Track position somewhere that will let me teach and do a little. Research on the side. Safety is overrated. Easy to say when you have a safety net. Made of money. The words came out sharper than she intended, and she immediately regretted them. But Cameron didn't look offended. Instead, he nodded slowly.
You're right.
I have advantages you don't, and pretending otherwise is insulting. He squeezed her hand. But having money doesn't mean I'm living instead of just surviving. Most days I feel like I'm playing a part, someone else wrote, saying lines I don't believe. The only time I've felt real in the last 3 years was that night you broke into my apartment and destroyed my rug. Despite herself, Jenna smiled. I didn't break in. The door was open. You keep saying that like it makes it better. He was smiling too, warm and genuine. Jenna, I don't have all the answers. But I know that you make me want to be braver. You make me remember that there's more to life than quarterly reports and board meetings. Maybe we could both be a little braver together. The growing connection, they stayed in the diner until Rosie came over personally to tell them she was closing up. A full hour past her usual time. Cameron insisted on paying despite Jenna's protests, and left a tip that made Rosie's eyes widen. Outside, the November air was cold and crisp, the kind of night where you could see your breath. Cameron offered her his jacket, and when she tried to refuse, he simply draped it over her shoulders. I'll freeze, she protested. I'll survive. Besides, you look better in it than I do. They walked through Brooklyn, not heading anywhere in particular, just moving through the pools of streetlight and shadow. Cameron told her about his father's last concert, Thomas had played Chopin with hands that shook from illness but still found every note perfectly. Jenna told him about her mother, who worked 2 jobs to pay for her education and never complained but always looked tired. She wanted more for me, Jenna said. A life that didn't break her back and drain her bank account. And here I am delivering pizzas to pay for a degree that might not lead anywhere. It will lead somewhere, Cameron said with such certainty that she almost believed him. You're too passionate, too talented to stay invisible. The world is just slow to catch up sometimes. They ended up at the Brooklyn Bridge, leaning against the railing and looking out at the water. Manhattan glittered across the river, a city of possibilities and broken dreams in equal measure. Can I tell you something? Cameron asked. Haven't you been telling me things all night? Something I haven't told anyone else. He turned to face her fully. That night you showed up at my apartment. I had been standing on my balcony for an hour, trying to remember why I kept going. Not in a scary way, he added quickly, seeing her expression. Just in a tired way. Everything felt gray and pointless. And then you crashed into my life with your pizza and your passion and your ability to see things that actually matter, and suddenly everything had color again. Cameron, I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. But I can't remember the last time I felt this awake, this aware that I'm alive and not just going through motions. He reached up, tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear. You scare me, Jenna Hayes, because you make me want things I thought I'd given up on. What things? She whispered. Everything. Music and meaning and mornings that don't feel like obligations. A life that's mine instead of someone else's expectations. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You. The kiss, when it came, was inevitable. His lips were soft against hers, tentative at first, asking a question. Jenna answered by pulling him closer, her hands fisting in his shirt. And the kiss deepened into something that made the world disappear. When they finally broke apart. Both breathing hard, Cameron rested his forehead against hers. Come home with me. It wasn't a demand. It was a request, hopeful and vulnerable. And Jenna knew that whatever she decided would matter. The choice I want to, she said honestly. But Cameron, we need to be realistic about this. You live in a penthouse with original art on the walls. I live in an apartment where the hot water only works on Tuesdays and Thursdays if we're lucky. You run a billion-dollar company. I deliver pizzas and write papers about dead painters. This thing between us, whatever it is, it exists in a bubble. What happens when reality crashes in? Then we deal with it together. You say that now? But what about when your friends meet me and wonder why you're dating someone so far below your tax bracket? What about when I can't afford to do the things you want to do? Go to the places you want to go? What about when the novelty wears off and you realize, I'm just a broke graduate student with big dreams and no way to achieve them? Cameron took both her hands in his, holding them against his chest, where she could feel his heart beating. Listen to me. I don't care about tax brackets or what my friends think. Most of them are boring anyway. And you're not just anything. You're brilliant and passionate, and you see beauty in things other people overlook. That's not novelty. That's not something that wears off. That's everything. But the practical stuff, we'll figure it out. Together if you want to. He searched her face. Do you want to? Jenna thought about her 5-year plan, carefully constructed and color-coded. She thought about playing it safe. About the tenure-track position she hoped for and the comfortable, predictable life it represented. She thought about her mother's tired eyes and her determination not to end up the same way. Then she thought about Cameron's smile when he talked about music. About the way he listened when she talked about her research like it mattered. About standing on his balcony that first night, looking out at the city, feeling for the first time in years like she could want something just because she wanted it. Not because it was practical or safe or smart. I want to, she said. I want to try, even though it terrifies me. Good. He kissed her again, softer this time. Being terrified means it matters. Safe is boring. Let's be brave and terrified together. They took the subway back to Manhattan, sitting close on the plastic seats while the train rattled through the darkness. Cameron's arm was around her shoulders. and Jenna felt something settling in her chest, something that felt dangerously like hope. At his building, George the doorman gave them a knowing look, but said nothing. In the elevator, surrounded by mirrors that reflected them from every angle, Cameron kissed her until she forgot where she was, and when the doors opened onto his floor, he took her hand and led her home. The morning after his apartment looked different at night, softer somehow. The city lights painted patterns on the walls, and the Rothko that might have been real glowed in the dimness. Cameron poured them wine, put on music that was older than both of them, and they danced in his living room like people who didn't know how to dance but didn't care. "I'm not good at this," Jenna admitted as she stepped on his foot for the third time. "Neither am I. We'll be bad at it together." They talked until the skies started to lighten. Wrapped in blankets on his couch, sharing stories and silences. When Jenna finally fell asleep, her head on his shoulder, Cameron stayed awake watching her, memorizing the curve of her cheek and the way her eyelashes cast shadows. He had told her the truth. She had brought color back to his gray world. Now he just had to prove that he could be worthy of that gift. The breaking point 2 months into their relationship. Jenna sat in her tiny apartment staring at her bank statement with growing dread. The numbers didn't lie, no matter how many times she refreshed the screen hoping they would magically change. Between missing shifts to spend time with Cameron and expenses she had convinced herself didn't matter, she was dangerously close to overdrafting. Riley found her there an hour later. "Still frozen in front of her laptop? That bad?" Riley asked, setting down a bag of takeout they couldn't really afford. "Worse. I'm behind on my portion of the rent. I owe the university for my spring semester fees. And I just got an email from Greg saying if I miss one more shift, I'm fired." Jenna closed the laptop with more force than necessary. "I'm an idiot." "You're in love." "Same thing, apparently." Jenna pulled her knees up to her chest. "I've been pretending I can afford to live in his world." "Riley, new clothes for fancy dinners I pretended not to notice were expensive. Taking cars instead of the subway because it's easier. Cutting back on work to have time to see him. And now it's all catching up, and I don't know how to fix it without admitting that I'm basically a financial disaster." Riley sat down next to her on the threadbare couch. "Have you talked to Cameron about any of this?" "How?" "Hey, boyfriend, I know you're worth billions, but dating you is bankrupting me. Could you slow down on the lifestyle?" "That's not embarrassing at all." He'd want to know. He'd want to fix it. "With money. And then what am I? Some woman he has to support because she can't take care of herself. That's not a relationship. That's charity." "Or," Riley said gently, "it's two people who care about each other finding solutions to problems together. Like adults." Jenna wanted to argue, but the practical part of her brain knew Riley was right. Still, the thought of admitting her financial struggles to Cameron made her stomach churn with shame. He had grown up with everything. How could he possibly understand what it felt like to choose between eating and paying bills, between pride and practicality? Her phone buzzed. "Cameron, of course. Dinner tonight? There's this new place in Tribeca I want to try. Supposed to be amazing." Jenna stared at the message, doing quick mental math. Dinner in Tribeca meant expensive? Even if Cameron paid, which he always insisted on, it meant getting there. It's probably looking presentable, being away from the work she desperately needed to catch up on. It meant continuing to pretend everything was fine when it very much wasn't. She typed back, "Can't tonight." Swamped with dissertation work. Rain check. The lie tasted bitter, but it was easier than the truth. His response came quickly. "Of course. Want me to bring you food? You need to eat." "Good. Talk tomorrow? Miss you already." Jenna set down her phone and put her head in her hands. Riley rubbed her back in slow circles, not saying anything. Somehow made it worse. The confrontation Cameron knew something was wrong. Jenna had been pulling away for 2 weeks now, canceling plans, responding to texts hours late, always with some excuse about school or work. He had tried to be understanding, to give her space. But understanding and patience were rapidly giving way to concern. He showed up at her apartment on a Saturday morning, bringing coffee and bagels from her favorite place. When Riley opened the door, her expression told him everything he needed to know. "She's going to kill me for letting you in," Riley said. But she stepped aside anyway. Jenna was at her tiny desk in the corner that served as her workspace. Surrounded by papers and books, her hair in a messy bun and wearing sweatpants that had seen better days, she looked exhausted and beautiful and far away, even though he was standing right behind her. Jenna. She spun around, eyes wide. Cameron, what are you doing here? You've been avoiding me for 2 weeks. I figured if you wouldn't come to me, I'd come to you. He set the coffee and bagels on the desk. Talk to me. What's going on? Nothing. I told you, I'm just busy with school. Don't do that. Don't lie to me. Crouched down so they were eye level. I know something's wrong. Whatever it is, we can figure it out together. That's what you do when you care about someone. For a long moment, Jenna said nothing. Then, like a dam breaking, the words came flooding out. I can't afford this. Us. Your life. Any of it. She gestured helplessly around her cramped apartment. I'm broke, Cameron. Like actually genuinely broke. I'm behind on rent. I'm about to lose my job because I keep missing shifts to be with you. And I've been pretending everything is fine, when really I'm drowning. And the worst part is, I can't even be mad at you because you didn't do anything wrong. You've been nothing but wonderful. This is all me and my stupid pride and my inability to just admit that I can't keep up. Cameron sat back on his heels, processing. Why didn't you tell me? Because it's humiliating. Because you have everything, and I have nothing. And admitting that I can't even afford to date you makes me feel small and pathetic, and like maybe everyone was right that this was never going to work. Who's everyone? The voice in my head that sounds like every practical person I've ever met. The part of me that made that 5-year plan and is watching it fall apart. The part that knows better than to fall in love with someone from a completely different world. Her voice cracked. I'm supposed to be smarter than this. The solution. Cameron stood up, ran his hands through his hair, and paced the small space. Jenna watched him, waiting for the inevitable. The understanding smile, the gentle letdown. The offer to stay friends that they both knew would never happen. Instead, he turned back to her with fire in his eyes. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, you're going to let me cover your rent this month while you catch up. Don't argue, he added as she opened her mouth to protest. It's not charity. It's me investing in your future because I believe in you, and because relationships mean supporting each other when things get hard. Second, you're going to quit that pizza delivery job. Cameron, I can't just... You're going to quit, he continued firmly, because I'm hiring you. My foundation has been looking for someone to research and curate a program highlighting overlooked artists. It pays twice what you make delivering pizza. It's directly related to your field. And it's flexible around your school schedule. You'd be doing me a favor, actually. I've been trying to fill the position for months. Jenna stared at him. You're making that up? I'm not. Call my assistant Monday and ask her about it. The position has been open since September. He moved closer, taking her hands. Jenna, I'm not trying to rescue you or fix your life. I'm offering you an opportunity that you're qualified for, that you'd be brilliant at, and that happens to solve a practical problem. If we weren't dating, if you had just applied for the job, I'd hire you in a heartbeat based on your credentials alone. It feels like taking advantage of what? A job opening that exists whether you take it or not. A chance to do the work you're passionate about instead of delivering pizzas in the rain. His voice softened. Baby, there's nothing wrong with accepting help. It doesn't make you weak or dependent. It makes you smart. And someday, when you're a famous curator with exhibitions in major museums, you can help someone else the way I'm helping you now. That's how it works. The choice that changes everything. Jenna pulled her hands away, standing up and walking to the window. From here, she could see a slice of the city, ordinary people living ordinary lives. Safe lives. Predictable lives. If I say yes, she said slowly, everything changes. I stop being just a graduate student dating someone out of her league. I become someone who works for her boyfriend's foundation. Someone who took the easy way out instead of earning everything herself. Or, Cameron said, coming to stand beside her, you become someone who is brave enough to accept an opportunity when it was offered. Someone who chose partnership over pride. Someone who decided that her dreams mattered more than what strangers might think. What about us? What if we don't work out? Then I've taken this job, changed my whole life, and I'm stuck working for my ex. Then we'd both be adults about it. You'd keep the job because you earned it, and we'd figure out how to be professionals. But Jenna turned her to face him. I'm not planning on us not working out. I'm planning on us being annoyingly happy together for a very long time. I'm planning on supporting your dreams while you support mine. I'm planning on someday watching you give a talk at the Met about those forgotten artists and being able to say, that's my girlfriend. She's incredible. Tears spilled down Jenna's cheeks. This is terrifying. I know. But you told me once that being terrified means it matters. He wiped her tears with his thumbs. I love you, Jenna Hayes. I've loved you since you destroyed my rug and looked at me like I was just a person instead of a bank account. I love your passion and your pride and your determination to do everything yourself. But you don't have to do everything yourself. Not anymore. Let me be your partner in this, please. It was the please that did it. The raw hope in his voice, the vulnerability in his eyes. This wasn't a billionaire playing savior. This was a man who had been alone for too long, offering to build something real with someone he loved. "Okay," Jenna whispered. "Okay, I'll take the job. And I'll let you help with the rent. And I'll try to be less stupidly proud about accepting help from someone who loves me." Cameron's smile was like sunrise. Yeah. But Cameron, she poked him in the chest. If we're doing this, we're doing it as equals. I need you to tell me when I'm being stubborn. And I need you to let me help you too. This can't be one-sided. Deal? You can start by helping me figure out what to do with Blackwell Investments. I've been thinking about what you said about survival versus living. Maybe it's time I made some changes too. They stood at her window, holding each other while the city moved below them, and for the first time in weeks, Jenna felt like she could breathe. 6 months later, the gallery opening was everything Jenna had dreamed of, and more. The walls of the Cameron Blake Foundation's exhibition space were lined with paintings and sculptures by women who had been forgotten by history. Their stories told through careful curation and passionate research. She had spent 6 months tracking down pieces, contacting collectors, writing descriptions that brought these artists to life. "Speech time," Riley whispered. Appearing at her elbow with a glass of champagne, Jenna's hands were shaking as she walked to the front of the gallery. 50 people had turned out for the opening, art critics and students and collectors. And there in the front row was Cameron, looking at her with such pride that she had to blink back tears. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "This exhibition is about women who refused to be silent, who created art in a world that told them they shouldn't, who persisted despite every obstacle. They remind us that passion and determination can overcome almost anything. And they remind us that sometimes accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom." She caught Cameron's eye. He was grinning. These women supported each other, learned from each other, lifted each other up. They understood that we don't have to do everything alone. That partnership and community make us stronger, not weaker. I hope when you look at their work, you'll remember that. And I hope you remember their names, because they deserve to be known. The applause was warm and genuine. People came up afterward to congratulate her, to ask questions, to request information about purchasing pieces. One woman, a curator from a major museum, handed Jenna her card. "I'd love to talk about bringing a version of this exhibition to our space. Call me next week?" When everyone had finally left and it was just the two of them standing in the gallery, Cameron pulled Jenna into his arms. "Told you," he said. "Annoyingly happy for a very long time. We've only been together 8 months, so we're ahead of schedule. I like it." He kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you. You did this? Not because I helped, but because you're brilliant and determined and exactly as stubborn as I thought you were." "I couldn't have done it without you," Jenna said honestly. "The job, the space, the resources, you made this possible. I gave you tools you already knew how to use. There's a difference." He pulled back to look at her. "So, ready for the next adventure?" "What next adventure?" Cameron pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "Plane tickets. 2 weeks in Italy. Florence, Rome, Venice. All the museums and galleries you want. I cleared it with your boss. Oh wait, that's me. I cleared it with myself. We leave next month. Jenna opened the envelope with shaking hands. 2 tickets to Florence, first class, and a printed itinerary that included every museum and gallery she had ever mentioned wanting to see. Cameron, this is too much. It's not nearly enough, but it's a start. He took her hands. Jenna Hayes, will you go to Italy with me and show me all the art and beauty you've been studying for years? Will you let me watch you fall in love with paintings in person? Will you let me be part of your dream? She didn't have words. So instead, she kissed him. There in the gallery, surrounded by the work of women who had been brave enough to demand more from life. Women who had refused to play it safe? Is that a yes? Cameron asked when they finally broke apart. That's a yes to Italy. And a yes to us. And a yes to being brave enough to want things even when they scare me. She smiled up at him. Thank you for breaking into my life and refusing to leave. You broke into mine first. I'm just returning the favor.